I've been working out now consistently for 8 years. I've always lifted weights. I've done multiple diets and bulks, but I've never really been able to sustain either until this year, where I did something different and I've never felt so good in myself. So in this video, I'm going to cover everything that I did, answering all of your questions and show you how I went from this to feel my best yet. Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I thought we could do something different this week. I've just grabbed a pumpkin spiced latte. This tastes really good. Since my transformation this year, so many of you have been asking me exactly how I did it. And so I thought it was time for me to sit down and tell you guys exactly what I did as a little bit of a backstory, because I think this is quite important. Like I said, I've been working out for 8 years and I've always dieted, done bulks, but I've religiously lifted weights until this year. And in January, I actually started running. To be precise, on the 28th of January, I went on my first ever run. And I'm not gonna lie, it was the hardest thing ever. I think I ran for like 5 minutes and then had to walk and repeat that. So it was a really hard thing to start, but I consistently went on 1 run per week. And I made a pact with myself that I was gonna do that. When it got to May, I actually started going on 2 runs a week, and that was because I started to take my running a little bit more seriously. I went on holiday in June and then came back and thought, this is such a great time for me to just really focus and do a little bit of a diet and just see what I could do. Obviously at the time I was doing 2 runs a week. I did this 6-week diet and I completely changed my body, and I actually just feel so good in myself at the moment. So let's get down to it and let's go over exactly how I did it. Okay, first of all, how did I stay so motivated all the time? Now, motivation is something that you definitely can't solely rely on, because we are all humans and we're gonna get days where we don't feel so motivated to work out or stick to things. But the most important thing is that you just stay consistent and you just do what you can. I managed to stay motivated because my diet was only for 6 weeks. When people diet for weeks on weeks, of course your motivation is going to go down. The best way to diet is actually to get in and get out, is what I always say, because if you're spending weeks and weeks dieting, it's going to be impossible to stay motivated all of the time. So my first tip would be, do a diet for a set amount of time and make sure you stick to that set amount of time. Don't let it go on for weeks and weeks. Secondly, there is nothing more motivating than seeing change in yourself. So you've got to give it enough time. Don't just do 1 week or 2 weeks of dieting, not see any progress, and then stop. You've got to be a bit more consistent, give it time, make sure that you take your photos, make sure that you take your measurements. All of these things will help in regards to you seeing progress. And of course, you know, it's nice to see the scale moving, but it's not always going to be your main indicator of progress. So I would really recommend taking other forms of progress. And when you start to see a change, it's the best feeling ever, and it makes you want to continue because you know that you're doing the right thing. So that would be my second tip in terms of motivation. And then my third tip would be, I genuinely love working out. I love how it makes me feel, and I know that if I don't go to the gym on like the days where I've got planned, it doesn't make me feel good, because I go to the gym and I work out because I absolutely love it. I go running because I absolutely love it. So I think it's also a case of making sure that you're doing something that you enjoy, because if you don't enjoy it, you're never going to stay motivated. And just because I run and go to the gym doesn't mean you have to. If you like playing tennis, if you like swimming, do that. Whatever you enjoy doing, it's a form of exercise and it's going to benefit you. And lastly, I think it's also important to realize that you're not going to be motivated every single day. So don't beat yourself up if you don't have the best day. It's okay. The second question is, what were my calories and how did I work them out? So when I was on my diet, I tracked my macros and calories, and I couldn't recommend tracking your macros enough, because I feel like quite a few people just track their calories. Now, the difference between tracking your macros and your calories is that with your macros, you're going to track your protein, your carbs, and your fats. And that's going to help you massively when it comes to dieting, because protein helps to keep you full. It's also great for maintaining muscle mass, and it's obviously needed if you want like that nice toned physique, which I wanted. So to work out your protein, you're going to have 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So for me, that was roughly 140 grams, and my protein never ever changes, whether I'm dieting, whether I'm bulking, whether I'm maintaining. I'm always on 140 grams of protein. And then I actually work my calories out a little bit more complicated than this, but I'm going to just tell you all a really easy way, because everyone wants an easy guide, right? So what you need to do is you need to times your weight in pounds by 12, and this is going to give you your deficit calories. And then if you know that your protein's 140, you can take your carbs and your fats from that to create the calories, because it doesn't matter whether you have more carbs or more fats. Now, obviously, if you work that out for me, mine are going to be, I think it's around, off the top of my head, around 1700, 1750. But in my journey, and this is why it's really important to not just go by that, but in my journey, I never ate under 1850 calories, and that's because I was being so active. So I was going on 2 runs a week. I also had a step goal of 8k a day, and because I was being so active, I could afford to eat more. And it's also really important to remember, guys, that I have been bulking, gaining muscle, dieting for such a long time that I have a substantial amount of muscle mass. So for me, when I diet, I can be on higher calories now than when I used to, which is obviously a great benefit of doing that. The third question was, what was my workout split and how many times a week did I run? Now, I obviously changed my complete workout split this year because I started running. So when I was dieting, I was doing 2 runs a week. So 1 run was more of a tempo-based run, and that was for around 30 minutes. And then I had a slightly longer run at the end of the week, which was for around 35 to 45 minutes. I think a lot of people are actually surprised when I tell them that I don't actually go running for hours and hours. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle when they try and combine like weight training with running and then dieting on top of that as well. And actually it's so counterproductive if you are going on really long runs when you're dieting, because you're going to be so hungry and you're not going to be able to stick to it. So if you are running while also trying to diet, I literally couldn't recommend it enough to actually do shorter runs, which, like I said, sounds counterproductive, but it's going to help you so much in terms of being able to stick to your calories and feeling a lot fuller. I would never ever recommend someone doing like a marathon or a marathon training block and dieting. Never ever gonna work. So I had such a good balance between like my running and my weight training and my diet, and everything just sort of clicked into place, and that's how I saw the results that I did. But alongside my 2 runs, I did 3 workouts a week, and I did 2 leg days and 1 upper body. So for instance, a typical week for me would be Monday, I would go on my tempo run because that's my busy day, so I didn't want to be spending hours running. Tuesday would be a leg day. Wednesday would be upper body. Thursday would be rest. Friday would be leg day. Saturday would be a run. Sunday would be rest. And that's like my typical kind of week. But obviously just remember, everyone's schedule is so different. So it's just about finding what is right for you. So this actually leads me on to the next question. How did I balance running and weight training? Was it harder on fewer calories? It might actually shock you, but I didn't really find it that hard at all, combining the running, the weight training and being on fewer calories, because I was only dieting for 6 weeks. So it wasn't a huge amount of time to struggle, if that makes sense. If I was dieting for 12 weeks, I definitely would have struggled, and my diet adherence 100% would have dropped towards the end of it. But because it was short and sweet, I found it quite easy, and because I saw results, I found it super motivating. But it's just really important when you're combining the 3 of them to make sure that your calories are right. So if you are doing it and you're finding that you're really hungry, you either need to cut down on the running slightly, or you need to look at increasing your calories. And don't be afraid of doing that, because actually sometimes being on more calories can be so beneficial, because you'll feel better in yourself, you can stick to it, you might even be more active because you've got more energy. So many benefits to being on to being on higher calories. The next question is, did running help me in my fat loss journey? And I think that's quite a big question because, like I said, something this year was just different in regards to the physique that I've got now compared to when I've previously dieted. And my honest answer is yes. I think running has completely changed my physique, but I think it's also really important to remember that I've been weight training for 8 years, so I have a sufficient amount of muscle mass, and now I've started to obviously incorporate running into it. I'm being more active. Obviously running uses different muscles. Like, a runner's body is a lot different to a weight training body. Let's be real, it's like two completely different demands. So I think because I've got the basics of weight training and now I've started adding in running, it's just giving me that slightly different physique, and I think that's why I've just seen like this change. But I don't want to say to you, oh, just go running, because that's not how you're going to get my physique. The way you're going to get like a nice toned physique is by combining weight training and running, but also you've got to remember that the amount of time that you're doing it for really plays into it. But it's also important to remember that I was running since the beginning of January and I didn't see massive changes in my physique until I started the diet in June, and that's because I then started tracking my macros and calories. So I would say like it definitely helped me on my journey for sure, but the biggest change was when I started tracking my macros and calories and combined it with all that. So there's not just one thing that helped me on my journey, it's a combination of everything. How did I stay full and not get hungry? I think it's really funny that when I talk about my diet, I genuinely never ever felt hungry, and it's probably quite hard to believe because a lot of people associate dieting with feeling super hungry. I mean, the word diet is just, yeah, not the best word. But the way to stay full while you're dieting and for it to not feel like a diet is to track your macros and calories, because protein's going to help to keep you really full, but it also enables you to eat all of your favorite foods. So if you're tracking your macros and calories, you can eat every single food that you love, whereas if you were to be following a meal plan, you're going to get so bored of that meal plan if it's the same like every single day, or if it's relatively the same. So I would really recommend tracking your macros and calories, keep things varied. You can even go out and socialize when you're tracking your macros and calories, so it literally doesn't feel like a diet. But I also actually started having my breakfast slightly later on in the day when I started dieting, and actually, to be honest, this year as well. So I used to be the girl who would wake up in the morning and have my breakfast at 8 a.m, but now I don't have breakfast till like 10:30. So what that does is actually shorten your window of eating. So instead of having, say, 8 hours to eat all your food, you've got 6, and so your meals are closer together and you feel a lot fuller, and that helped me massively. But alongside that, I was also really eating well-balanced meals. I was having my fruit, I was having my vegetables, and making sure that I was having 25 grams of fiber a day. And with like that all combined, drinking lots of water and getting enough sleep, I just never ever felt hungry because I never craved any foods. I was eating everything that I wanted to, and it was just the best diet and the most sustainable one as well. Did I have cheat meals, and how many did I have per week? Okay, I want to nail this on the head. I don't like calling meals out or eating more calories than your set cheat meals, because you're not cheating on anything. It's just a day of higher calories and you're just being a normal person. So let's nip that in the bud. We don't call any meals cheat meals here, guys. But yeah, I definitely had days where I went out and I had days where I went over my calories slightly. But the most important thing when you have these things is that you just get straight back to it the next day. But I also want to be honest with you, because my diet was only for 6 weeks, I honestly didn't struggle. And I'm gonna be real, I don't really crave food, like fried food. Like, I'm sitting opposite a Subway, Frankie and Benny's, Nando's. I mean, I love a Nando's, and that's actually so easy to incorporate when you're dieting. But when I'm dieting, I don't put myself in situations where I have to go and have a massive pizza. I will just do other things. So if I'm craving a pizza, I'll make a pizza wrap or I'll make a low calorie pizza. And it's because I know if I go and have like a Domino's or something, I'm not gonna feel good after that, because it never ever makes me feel good. The next day I'm gonna feel so bloated, and then I'm just gonna be catching up on that week. So I would rather just get the diet done and yeah, just find other ways of incorporating those foods that I may be craving. I definitely went out, I definitely had meals out, but I would always make sure that I would choose the best kind of options and of course still enjoy myself, like of course. And I definitely had nights out with my girlfriends where we had drinks, of course. But then, you know, I would just get straight back to it the next day, completely back to my same calories, wouldn't drop them. But I think, you know, I was consistent. That's the most important thing. I didn't go out every single week, and you really do have to make, you know, some sort of sacrifice when you do want to get there, in the fact that you can't go out and get drunk every single week because you're not going to make progress if you do. I actually got asked this next question quite a bit, and I think it's because quite a few years ago when I dieted, I actually lost my period for 18 months. And yeah, it was a combination of like dieting, personal stress, to be honest, and I was doing a lot of CrossFit at the time. A lot of you guys asked how I, you know, stopped my diet from affecting my cycle again. And it's because this time I wasn't overtraining, I wasn't stressed personally, I was getting enough sleep, I was eating more calories, and I wasn't dieting for weeks on weeks on weeks. And yeah, I was just really listening to my body. And it's so important when you're dieting to make sure that you do all that and you don't overtrain, because I think a lot of people think that, you know, more workouts and less food is always better in terms of like getting results, and it's definitely not. You need to make sure that, you know, you are not starving yourself, because that's when you can see changes in your cycle. And then lastly, how have I maintained since? If you've seen from my Instagram, obviously my videos on here, I have actually really managed to maintain everything since I finished my diet at the end of, well, it was mid-August that I finished, so I've maintained everything really well. And I actually stepped on a scale the other morning, I was slightly less when I finished my diet. I don't know how, but the way I've maintained is because I've still basically done everything that I was when I was dieting. Obviously I've eaten more, I've been eating to my maintenance, but I've also been as active. I haven't like completely stopped what I was doing, but when I was dieting, I wouldn't say that I completely changed what I was doing anyway. Like I said, the only thing I really started doing was tracking my macros and calories, but I've been able to maintain it because I'm so active. I still make good food choices. I still eat well, like, I don't know, I'd say 80% of the time, but I'm just a little bit more relaxed with it. And I'm definitely like not as lean, but I feel really good in myself. And it's also really important to remember, like, when you reach your goal and you get to your leanest, you're not going to stay there fully. You're always gonna vary in terms of like how your body looks day to day, because we're women, we have cycles, we have periods, we get stressed, we have less sleep. Like, there's so many things that play into what our body looks like, and it's just important to remember that when you finish your diet, because you're not always gonna look like that, and no one ever looks like how they do at the end of a diet. So you just got to be realistic. My plan now really is just to maintain as much as possible, but I just really want to get better at running. I did my second ever 10k last weekend and I got a PB. I actually ran 10k in 58 minutes, which I never ever thought I was ever going to be able to do. And yeah, I'm just really wanting to focus on my running and my training now and just see what I can do, because I'm just really enjoying it again. And yeah, it's exciting. But thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you at the same time next week. Bye guys.